Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Idaho House Republicans podcast, where you get to know a little bit more about the representatives that you have sent to the State House. And today we're really grateful to have with us Heather Scott, Representative Heather Scott, who represents Legislative District 2. Let me tell you a little bit about Representative Scott. She's in her 6th term, which is pretty cool. She's been a North Idaho resident for 28 years. She has a BS in biology from University of Akron. She is a professional aquatic biologist. Did you know that? And she is also the daughter of a Vietnam vet and the granddaughter of 2 World War II veterans. Very cool. And the best part, of course, is that she's married to the wonderful Andrew.
That's true. That's the best part of me.
Exactly. And so welcome to the Idaho House Republicans podcast, Representative Heather Scott.
Thank you for having me on.
So what we like to start with is first, tell us a little about Legislative District 2. You used to represent Legislative District 1, now Legislative District 2. Tell us a little bit about that district. Is it urban? Is it rural? And what do they care about in Legislative District 2?
Well, I would say District 2 has a little bit of Bonner County, which is my house. They kind of drew a line around we joke, around the chicken coop and went south as far as we could.
That's funny.
So District 2 is Clearwater County, Benewah County, Shoshone County, and parts of Bonner and Kootenai County. So 5 counties.
Wow.
Very rural, probably one of the most rural areas in the district. Really small communities, small towns. And I think what people care about most is just lower taxes. That a lot of these rural communities, there's not the tax base that there is in the higher urban areas. And so funding things in the county are difficult with just not a big population. A lot of timber.
And there's a lot of faith, family, and freedom up there.
Oh, you bet.
Yep. Freedom from government intervention, leaving people alone, letting them live their lives.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
It is.
So let's talk a little bit about the committees that you're on. Can you tell people about the committees that you represent here in the House?
Yes. So I am on Environment, Energy, and Technology.
Okay.
Which we deal a little bit with. We do a lot of water resource stuff, but also hazardous waste and a little bit of AI. And then also I'm on Judiciary and Rules. We deal with crime and punishment in the prisons. And then third, I'm on State Affairs. I'm the Vice Chair of State Affairs. And that committee deals with just general government, a lot of the flashy issues, such as
controversial issues often, yeah.
I always say guns and babies. Those are the 2 biggest, abortion and guns, two big topics, but that committee is where the controversial things come out of, for sure.
So just so people know, the Speaker of the House puts the chair in place. Who puts the vice chair in place? Is that voted by the committee itself? How is the vice chair chosen?
I think that's between the speaker and the chairman. I think they decide together. So.
Perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've earned it. Your 6 terms.
Thank you.
So you also on the Joint Committee of Child Custody and Domestic Relations, which was a joint committee that was done last year. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in context of another issue. But you did also serve on that committee as well, correct?
I was the co-chair with Senator Tammy Nichols. We were tasked with looking into child custody issues across the state. And as a task force, it took up a lot of time. It was well worth it. But we traveled the state. We interviewed hundreds of people and government officials that have dealt with family courts and some of the issues that citizens are dealing with. And so hours of heartbreaking testimony, and just learned a lot about that system.
So why don't we just jump right into a bill relative to that? Right. One of the outcomes, you did a white paper.
Yes. Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I actually tried to look at it this morning. I couldn't find it, but I would love to read that.
It is on the website, but I will give you a hard copy.
Okay, great. And tell us a couple of things that you came out of that. Like, what was in the white paper? What was some of the recommendations? Then I want to talk about one of the bills that you're obviously running in conjunction with that white paper.
So the white paper really just put everything together from the committee. So it took all the testimony, it took all the government employees, all the systems, and it kind of put it all in a package. So it was easier to digest for someone that didn't want to listen to hours and hours of testimony. What we learned is that the legislature has not given clear direction on policy into this realm of family courts. We've heard testimony from judges, from lawyers, from law enforcement. Several of them said that the legislature has failed us because we haven't given clear direction. So I think that was a big takeaway, that we needed to be clearer on our policy from the state on what we would like to see.
And when you say they haven't been clear in direction, what kind of issues do you feel that they have not given direction on? Just give us some examples where we've lacked direction from the legislative side.
Well, and some of the bills coming out of it, I would say, but we just didn't get into enough detail on how we want parental rights. I mean, this state really values inherent rights. Parental rights are a substantial right. And so we realized that maybe citizens' parental rights were being violated just because there was no process that protected that, or decisions were made because no direction was given how to make policy.
Okay.
So that was a big deal, I think, is to see there was, custody battles are sad. I mean, and both
They are.
parents they both want to see their kids 100% of the time. So it's tough when you have to come in front of a judge and a judge needs to make a decision who gets Johnny how long.
Right.
There's some children that haven't seen one of their parents for 2 years, and
Yeah.
their parent is not a criminal. Their
Right.
parent has done nothing,
To deserve that.
right. But custody, we determine, is custody. When we see 50-50 custody, what I never understood is it might not be 50-50 physical custody. What's being calculated is, well, you might have 80% of the financial custody and 20% of the physical custody. I think we're really working to define what custody looks like in these controversial situations.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing there. I know that there was 10 members to that joint committee, five in the House, 5 in the Senate, 8 Republicans, 2 Democrats. So it was across party lines, across the state representation.
Yes.
So thank you for looking into that issue and willing to be a co-chair, especially doing work like, everyone has this assumption that you guys are part-time. I mean, I think that is kind of funny because you certainly did that outside the scope of the normal legislative session. Is that right?
That is true. It did take up a lot of time, but I would say in the whole time I've been here, that's probably one of the most important things is keeping families together, keeping families whole. And I really didn't understand so many families are hurting across the state. And, we found trends, and I think you'll see some legislation to try to address some of the issues this year.
So let's talk about one thing I think that probably came out of that joint task force, and that is that you have a House Bill 524, which is called the Child Custody Interference Bill. And so can you tell people what is that bill and what is it trying to solve and how do you want to solve it?
Sure. So that bill is actually going to be reintroduced today because once we put that out, we had some feedback from different interest groups. It's hard to get prosecutors and lawyers and judges and law enforcement and citizens all to agree to something. But the problem we're trying to address is when 2 parents have custody and parent A is supposed to drop off Johnny at 6:00 and parent A doesn't show up. And so what does parent B do? And so parent B right now has to go back to the courts and say, parent A is not giving me my child, which is very costly. So it becomes a big legal thing. It can take months, if not years, to get parent A to follow the law. And so, or to follow the court order. And so what this bill aims to do is says if parent A doesn't return the child at the assigned time by the court order, then there's going to be some consequences. And so we started it just a couple like misdemeanors and just to say we're serious. And then, and it escalates over time. And so then there's also some affirmative action. That's what we've added into it from the last bill. If they've got a flat tire on the way there, it wasn't malicious. They're not trying to withhold the child. We want to take that into consideration. And then the other big thing out of this bill that we did is in the past, the police officers really didn't have any direction on what to do. They just said, go back to court. So now they're going to fill out a little report. So it just says parent A was supposed to be here. They didn't show up. Here's a citation. And then parent B can take that to the judge and say, he's not following your order. And here's some proof of it.
So ultimately, it sounds like the intent of the bill is to be more equitable between the parents, which is good for the child, by the way, and then to provide a mechanism by where we can keep this out of the courts and have it happen outside the courts in a normal course of business so that we can also keep that costly burden off of parents that are simply just trying to have their kids in
I
their
think
lives?
you're right. It's going to, I don't know that they know it yet, but I think it will relieve the court from some of these little fights that you have to go back to a judge every time. And we're wasting judges' time having to make these decisions because we have two parents or we have one adversarial parent that always wants to fight.
Now, when a bill comes back, it's often assigned a new it can have a new RS. It can go back through the whole process. It can be signed the same bill with an A after it, or right. How is this bill going to be reintroduced? Will it be a totally new bill? How is it going to come in?
It'll be a brand new number.
Okay.
So it's just a new RS. We just figured it would be cleaner that way. And some of the committee members are newer members, so they don't understand the process of holding a bill and passing the RS on. I just thought it'd be cleaner.
Now, will that go through the state affairs or will that go through judicial and rules?
Sharing rules.
Right, because it's a court. Okay. Well, best of
Thank
luck
you.
with that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the bills because you're the vice chair of the state affairs.
Yes.
And state affairs committee has seen some interesting bills this year, which it always does. A lot of the hard social issues come through your committee. So maybe talk a little bit about flags. Last year, there was a flag bill. It went all the way to governor's desk. It was signed. But here we have another flag bill. Tell us why we need another flag bill.
I don't think we need another flag bill. But what we're finding is when we pass bills, what we heard this year from last year's bill is, well, there was no enforcement in it. Okay. And so we don't generally write enforcement in every bill. There's just an assumption that government will follow the law.
Right. A government official should follow the law of the state of Idaho. Right.
We are to the point, I think, in our society where if government doesn't like, if a person in government, because it's a person in government making that decision and they don't like a law that's passed, they're just ignoring it. They're actually coming and being defiant to it. And so I think there's a little fix going on how to fix the actual flag bill.
More incentive to actually adhere to the law.
But I think overall, we're seeing this trend in other pieces of legislation. We have a bill that they're supposed to be reporting their contracts to the state controller. You'd ask me what's one of my favorite bills. It's House Bill 93 from 2023, where all these agencies that are into contracts or doing memorandums of understanding or agreements, they have to register that with the state controller's office so we have some list. Guess how many there are?
I don't know.
Last I checked.
How many?
41,000.
Oh, man.
41,000 memorandums of agreement, contracts. So,
wow.
So that being said, we still have agencies with that number that are not reporting.
Wow.
Whether they don't like the law. The first couple years, they said they didn't understand it. So we put some clarification language in it, and now they're just ignoring it. So we'll probably come back with a little bit of a penalty, but we should not have to do this.
Right.
Our laws would be huge, but I do think I've heard there's a fix coming. A general, you must kind of follow the law if you're in government, or there'll be consequences for everything.
Yeah, it is sad that we have to resort to actually putting teeth into a law when people should just obey the law.
Well, and remember, there's law for government and there's law for the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be, if the government doesn't have to follow the law, then why should the citizens?
Right. It sets a horrible example.
Horrible example.
Right. So, for example, the Boise mayor has been very confrontational about the flag. It's like, why don't we just all follow the law? Then we don't have to do things like this, like have another flag bill. There's a new bill that Representative Razor just brought before this State Affairs Committee. It's House Bill 606, which is a misdemeanor for any person knowingly or willingly basically going into a restroom.
Right.
And then the second is not a misdemeanor, but a felony. Talk about that bill. Just came through the State Affairs Committee recently.
That one's introduced, and then we had a second bill with government and businesses. That first bill you're talking about went to judiciary and rules.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to go back through there. Okay. The other bill just passed through State Affairs this morning. So it will be going to the full floor.
So tell me about that bill, the one that did get through the State Affairs Committee.
Yeah, we just want to protect privacy in bathrooms, not have
and locker rooms
and
public
so,
accommodations.
It just seems like a no-brainer. But as we continue to go down this route of always challenging the norm, I think some protections need to be put out there for protecting women's privacy, men's privacy. We don't want males using female bathrooms. I mean, that's
Right.
just, and it's sad we have to get to a point where we have to pass a law to stop that. But I think that's where we are in society.
And so we have to
Yeah.
take action. So talk about House Bill 542 came through the State Affairs Committee. It was just passed off the floor the other day. And this is a social media, it deals with social media platforms. That they must implement, monitor, and enforce the Stop Harms from Addictive Social Media Act.
Yes.
It was brought by Representative Crane.
Yes.
Jaron Crane.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that bill?
Yeah.
Because you did support it, I think, both in committee and on the floor.
Yeah, and I did co-sign that bill. When it comes to children and pornography, we have to do all we can, in my opinion, to protect young minds from that kind of stuff. His approach was a little different than most approaches that I've seen. I liked it because it went after the addiction. It went after where these companies can actually, they know how to get showing you. Yeah, they know how to
the
manipulate
algorithms and right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I like the approach of it. It kind of was techie, a little techie. You almost could have ran it through environment
business
and energy.
environment.
But I like the approach of it. I think we have to do everything we can to protect our children. I just can't even imagine being a child in what the society's like these days. It's just they're bombarded from every side with sexual things. And I just think this is a good step to stop that.
I believe, like, as you said, Idaho tends to do things and think a little outside the box, and we tend to lead on a lot of issues nationally, which is incredible for our little state of 2 million people. But the Fairness of Women's Sports Act came out of Idaho, and the first Vulnerable Child Protection Act came out for gender mutilation for minors. We've done $6 billion of tax cuts. Little Idaho has really led the way.
We lead the way on adoption.
Yeah, tell people about that. I think that's an important thing. Again, another child issue, which is central to your hearts. Talk about that.
We've taken the lead on adoption, making it easier for families, reducing some of the requirements and restrictions.
And fees.
Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's good policy to promote families in this state.
Yes, before Mr. Adams now he's with the Trump administration, but when he was the head of the Department of Health and Resources here, he immediately eliminated all the fees and all the time crunches for fostering. And so we've also led the way. Alex Adams has led the way on, and the state has led the way on fostering.
Yes.
And now we have more than one family per foster child. And when he started that effort, it was about 0.7 families for each.
Great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I think it shows you something that Trump's picking staff members from our state.
Yes.
Two of our legislators
Representative
are gone
Horman and Representative Andrus.
And before that was Tom Daley.
Right.
So
Go Idaho, right?
I like that.
So let's talk about, also have another bill, House Bill 617, and it is about the topic of programmable money. I know nothing about this topic. Please tell everybody in Idaho what you're trying to do with this bill.
Programmable money is digital money that has rules attached to it, and it comes from a central source. It's like if you've heard of CBDC, central bank digital currency.
Okay.
It's central bank digital currency, but it's programmable. It's under a different name. So what they can do is put rules and restrictions on how you use the money. It's opposite of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a digital money. Programmable money is different in that they know who it's issued to, and they can put restrictions. They can turn it on. They can turn it off.
Okay.
It's what's coming.
And you're concerned that it will be discriminatory in some way, or you want to make sure it doesn't become discriminatory in the way that's used. Talk about that.
I mean, you can ban it, but I think you're just not going to be able to fight. It's like fighting the internet, right? It's going to come. It's being used in China. It's how they do social scores for their citizens. It's tracking it. You're able to track every single purchase, every single move, and you're able to control social behavior with it. So we thought a better approach, instead of banning it, would be to not allow discrimination, to not allow them to do what they can do with it.
Social media scores and things like that.
Yep.
And tell us, where is that bill in the process? Where did it go through, and where is it going?
It went through the business committee, and it just got introduced. So it just got a bill number. It'll go for debate and testimony. And once passes there, then it goes to the House floor.
And when do you expect that it will go to the committee for debate?
I don't know. I just introduced it last week, so maybe next week. We're halfway through the session now.
So keep your eyes open for that. So that's House Bill 617. Just to go back, the House Bill was 524 for the child custody interference. That's going to have a new bill number?
That'll have a new bill number.
Okay.
There's a couple other.
So watch for that too.
There's a couple other bills that came out of that committee task force.
So that's the Joint Committee on Child Custody and Domestic Relations Task Force.
Yes. We're still working on language. We had one come out about the rules to where we can kind of review rules and just a process we're putting into place where we can look at certain rules that we might have conflict with code. But the big bill has not been, we call it the big beautiful bill.
The big beautiful bill.
It has not been released yet because we are still negotiating we're talking to everybody. And so everyone seems to have an idea about it. And so we're trying to make it as short as possible, but address what we need to address. So we've had lots of meetings, lots of rewrites. I think the bill drafter is just about tired of us. So we hope to get that finished by the end of this week and out in the next week or so.
Well, the one thing we've learned, Representative Scott, is that one person can make a difference. And, a citizen can often make which becomes a piece of legislation, becomes signed by the governor, becomes law. The other thing we've learned from some of these podcasts is it takes a long time to sometimes get a really important piece of legislation through the legislature. And like you said, sometimes we have to reset because you have to align all the interests of people like that custody bill that you want to talk about. So law enforcement, the courts, the citizens. So it really does let Idahoans know that sometimes it takes a while to put a good piece of legislation together, but it has to start.
Even if it's the best idea ever, there's always someone that doesn't like it. And I will say this, the culture of the legislature has changed over the past 3 years.
Tell me about that.
We now can at least share ideas. In the past, I would say the first 8 years I was here, if someone didn't like you or your idea, they wanted to suppress that idea so it would never be heard. And now you can at least share your idea. People don't like it, they can kill it. But you at least get to share what your idea is.
You get your day in court, so to say, right?
You get to go in front of the committee and say, here's my idea, or here's what my citizens want. What do you guys think? And that, a lot of times we get angry because government's not fixing things.
Right.
But I have seen change over the past 12 years. I have seen little changes that have turned into big changes. It's gradual, though. It's not as quick as I want it, but it is happening. And it is moving, I would say, in a better direction.
Well, the beautiful thing, you got to bring your bill. And then people said, hey, there's maybe a different approach. And now you're back presenting a better bill. And hopefully you're off to the races. Best of luck with that.
Thank you. I'll say one more thing. A lot of times, being in the legislative branch, we just see things like, we just write a law. People have to follow it. But the judicial, they have to interpret it and they have to put it into real life situations. And
agencies have to interpret the law and they add code.
And law enforcement has to enforce it. And I was on a podcast earlier this year talking to ex-cops, and we were talking about child custody, child protection services, and we came from completely different areas. And I said, well, I don't like how you guys do this. And he's like, well, we have to do it this way. And once you start hearing and having those conversations, you realize why maybe you can't do what you wanted to do, because there are always unintended consequences. And the law might be perfect for your situation, but it could completely destroy a family in another situation. So you have to write it broad enough that it affects everybody equally.
The first time we met, I ran this thing called Idaho Youth Leadership Forum.
Remember.
And we invited you to come speak, and you made quite an impact on the kids. They actually voted you their favorite person of the day. Yes, you really made quite a mark. Just tell us a little bit about what faith means to you and why you wanted to come and kind of sow into that group of youths.
I'm a Christian, and I would never be doing this if I didn't feel God was telling me to do it, because it's really out of my comfort level to do what I'm doing.
God, 12 years? I come in.
And my husband's like, I think God's telling you you're done. I'm like,
not until he says you're done.
I'm just doing it out of obedience.
Obedience, right?
And that's, people are like, how can you stay there that long and deal with all that? Well, I'm doing it for him first.
Praise God.
And when you do it for God first, it doesn't matter. You know my struggles the first several years I was here. I'm sure you remember some of the things, and I wasn't doing it for anyone but God. And so when you put him first, he's going to guide your path. Just put God first, he'll guide and direct your ways, and he keeps guiding me this way for now.
I don't think there's a better way to end our podcast than that. So we thank you very much for joining us on the Idaho House Republicans podcast. We've spent a really grateful time with Representative Heather Scott. She represents Legislative District 2, and your seat, what? A or
A,
B?
2A, like the gun.
What's that?
Like guns.
There you go.
2A,
Second Amendment.
Amendment.
How perfect for you. How perfect. She's in her 6th term, and she's done a really nice job here at the State House, and we're grateful for you spending time with us.
Thank you.
Representative Scott. And as we always say to end our show, God bless the great state of Idaho. Again, thank you, Representative Heather Scott.
From timber towns to wheat field roads, different roads, but the same old hope. We bow our heads and we stand up tall, answering the people when due.